Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. Trevor and I have been friends many, many years. And when I saw this article today inside the Democrat Socialists of America convention, where socialists declared dominance over Dems and set the sights on 2028, I knew I had to get Trevor Loudon on because he is an expert on the Democrat Socialists of America and what they're doing. Trevor, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure, Brannon.
So, when did their convention go down? When did they have their convention? I guess, was it in Chicago or where was it?
Yeah, it was in Chicago. They had it Friday to Sunday.
And they had about 1,200 people there, I read.
Yep, 1,200 delegates.
At McCormick Palace, Chicago's convention center, to solidify the party's platform. Tickets for the three-day convention intended by the Washington Free Beacon cost $225, required party membership. Well, that seems kind of exclusive, not inclusive. You have to pay $225 and be a part of that. Sounds awfully exclusive. I thought socialists were inclusive. What's going on?
No, that's just for the peasants. No, socialists are very elitist, and they love money more than any capitalist ever does. Yeah, they're the opposite of everything they tell you they are.
Of course, they're not peacemakers. They're not for peace. They're for war. They're, right? They're not for the underdog. They're for themselves.
They're not for unity. They're for disunity. They're not for equal sharing. They're for centralization of all power and all wealth. Yeah, but other than that, they're great.
Other than that, they're fine. So they're off to a pretty successful start for 2025, if I would say so, based on the fact they've got a very prominent candidate in Minneapolis, a very prominent candidate in New York City. And of course, they got AOC, in Congress, along with others. So tell me, how are they going to impact politics between now and 2028?
Well, they're seriously trying to get the Democratic nomination for 2028. And they are rapidly becoming the dominant faction inside the Democratic Party. That's because they control many major labor unions, which the Democrats rely on. They have around 90,000 members now. And so what they do, they concentrate all of their resources on certain races. That's how Mandami is likely to win in New York. That's how AOC won. The Democrat will have 200 volunteers. The DSA candidate will have 4,000. The DSA has got 10,000 members in New York alone, plus a whole lot of people on the city council. When Mandami ran, his main opposition was Brad Lander. Brad Lander pulled out and endorsed Mandami. Well, Brad Lander was also a member of Democratic Socialists of America. So they're very good at putting the fix in.
They're very good at putting in the fix. Well, there you go. And then there's Bernie Sanders. Is he really one of the most respected men in America now? Listen to this from CNN.
Something that I'm sure you have seen, a Gallup poll. Did you see this Gallup poll?
Yep.
And what the Gallup poll found was that you are one of the most widely admired Americans. And I believe you're only second to the Pope.
You want me to declare my candidacy for Pope? Is that what you're asking?
I don't think that you're eligible for a lot of reasons.
Then I won't do that.
I watched you tonight. I've watched you for a very, very long time. You're obviously still full of vigor and intensity for the things that you're passionate about and have been for decades. Is there another presidential run in you?
Oh, God. Let's not worry about that. I am going to be 84 years of age next month, as a matter of fact. So I think that speaks for itself.
So I don't know what that means, but he's like one of the most admired men in America, up there with Pope Leo, which I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between Pope Leo and Bernie Sanders as far as their worldview. So that would make sense.
No, well, that just shows you the power of the education system and the left-wing corruption of the media, that they create their little saints. They don't tell us what they're really about. Bernie Sanders has spent his whole life pursuing communism, the system that killed tens of millions of people. The man who honeymooned in the Soviet Union, had good relations with the Cubans, worked with the Communist Party USA, and lied through his teeth his whole career. Yeah, but because the media's on his side, most Americans don't know this. They think he's a sort of a cross between Grandpa Walton and and Jesus Christ.
Grandpa Walton. Logan, do you know who Grandpa Walton is? You're going to have to come up with, he says no. You're going to have to come up with.
Yeah, Brannon.
Of course I do. Of course I know who Grandpa Walton is.
And you didn't know, though, that the actor who played Grandpa Walton, Will Geer.
Yes, I do. I know what you're about to say. He was a progressive Marxist.
He was a communist, and he was a lover of Harry Hay, who started the gay movement.
He was a gay guy. I know.
Yeah.
I know. When I found that out, that the guy that played Grandpa on the Waltons was gay, I was like, what? Is there nothing sacred anymore?
Not just gay, a gay communist.
Logan, you don't even know who we're talking about, do we?
No,
Logan doesn't.
Logan
doesn't know who we're talking about. I've played the Waltons for you a gazillion times when you were smaller, but here we go. Here's who we're talking about, just so folks remember. Because folks don't remember who we're talking about. Remember him?
Next time, I'm going to let I got you cut it. It's not going to be any next time. I'm going to let it grow and braid it. Delilah.
Oh, he's going to grow and braid his hair. Well, that would be fitting. I just happened to pick that. What are the odds? What are the odds? Yeah, I remember the day I found out he was a communist and gay. I was like, what?
What? Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, Bernie Sanders but you say Bernie Sanders is kind of the Grandpa Walton figure, and so now he's very popular.
Well, that's how they portray him, you know. Mm-hmm. Look, if he had his way, we'd all be starving in this country. He would look,
How many homes does he have? Yeah, how many homes does he have?
3 mansions, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what I say. Communism is not about equal sharing of the wealth, you know. It's about centralizing wealth and power in the hands of the progressives, of the elite. You know, nothing is more elitist than socialism.
That's right. By the way, who did you say the actor on the Waltons? Who was his boyfriend?
Harry Hay, the founder of the gay rights movement, the man who was a member of NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. He was really the guy who gave us the gay rights movement, Harry Hay.
And his boyfriend was the grandpa on the Waltons.
Yeah, and Will Geer recruited Harry Hay into the Communist Party.
Yeah, I remember reading all this a few years ago, and I was just stunned. But I forgot who it was he recruited, but now it comes back to me. Wow, wow. I think there's a lot of people with their jaws on the ground right now. Let's see, Trevor, what else are you watching? Where do you think we're going with the 2026 election, midterms? Where do you think we're going in 2028? Size it up. Republicans going to lose the House or the Senate, and is it going to be a Vance Rubio ticket, or who's going to be is Kamala coming back? Is it going to be Bernie and AOC? What do you think?
No, it's Bernie's not going to stand. AOC will probably they'll push her as a left-wing candidate, and the battle will be between her and maybe Kamala or maybe Gavin Newsom or someone like that. But they've got a good chance of winning it.
They've got a chance of winning the presidency?
Well, winning the primary. I think.
So you think let me just to clarify, you think the far left communists have a good chance of winning the Democrat primary?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they did last time.
With Kamala.
You know, Kamala is as communist as AOC, not as openly as communist as AOC. But yeah, look, the Democratic Party is going further left every single day. Now, you couldn't have had a manned army 5 years ago, you know, but you can now because the Democratic Party shifted that much, and Democratic Socialists of America has got more powerful. 10 years ago, it was about 6,000 members. Now it's 90,000. And they've got all their allies in the Progressive Caucus. They control several major labor unions. They got a lot of foundation money. They have connections to the Cuban communists, the former East German communists, you name it. They are the vanguard of the revolutionary movement right now. So, yeah, I think Trump's got his work cut out for them in the midterms, and everybody needs to get involved because, you know, if we lose the midterms, you know, he's got a 3-seat pad at the moment, and that's not enough. Usually midterms go against the incumbent party. So he'd have to buck history and he'd have to do a good effort. But he's, I commend them. They're going for the redistricting in Texas. They're playing hardball here. All of that's good. They're clamping down on vote fraud. They're going after the bad guys. All of that's good. That might be enough, but it's not a guaranteed thing, that's for sure.
What about the Australia, New Zealand? They want to recognize.
Well-
You're from New Zealand, just for the record, but they want to recognize a Palestinian state next month. What's going on down there?
Well, as I wrote it in my book, Brannon, and every Australian should read that. Every American should read it. Comrade Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's 40-year alliance with Australian communism. He is a communist. He is a Marxist. He is a revolutionary. He's worked with the communists for 40 years. He's been pushing this Palestinian thing all of that time, but only now that Macron in France and Starmer, the communist in Britain, and what's his name? Mark, I forgot
Carney?
his name now.
Mark Carney?
Mark Carney and the globalist
Canada?
in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they have pushed it, he feels safe to come out. But the Search Foundation, the communist group that he's worked with for 40 years, put out a statement this morning on their website thanking everybody for the effort of getting Palestine recognized, thanking them all. There's been a 40-year battle for the communists. But Albanese's been working with the communists for 40 years. Finally, they've got it done. Now they say, the next stage is we've got to carry on. Basically, their goal is the destruction of Israel. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What other big stories are you watching right now in the political world?
Well, obviously, Trump and Putin. What's going to happen out of that? What's happening in the Middle East with Gaza, etc. You've got a real battle going on. We've got a lot of Putin Republicans now in the Republican Party. You've got a lot of anti-Jewish, anti-Israel feeling being stoked up inside the conservative movement and the Republican Party, mainly by the Russians and the Iranians, and just and some of the even through the Ron Paul movement, unfortunately. So it's a very critical time for freedom on the planet right now. I'm very, very supportive of President Trump's domestic agenda, but I think he's been led down the garden path by some people in his own party on both Russia and Israel and Iran. I think there's problems there.
Do you think we're headed toward war, or are we going to bypass World War III in this administration?
Well, if we don't stand up, for Ukraine, we're going to get World War III. If we don't let Israel take down Hamas, we're going to get World War III. The only way to stop World War III is to put Putin back in his box. He's getting ready to attack the Baltic states this year, probably Poland as well. There's no bargaining with this guy.
And, of course, we have people on the opposite side on the network. It's, I'm in a position because I have people I like and respect that are on both sides of this issue,
But I'm the smarter one, Brandon. But I know this. It's a very divisive issue.
Yes, it is.
A lot of American conservatives believe that Putin's a Christian and he's going to save us from the
Well,
Muslim
I don't believe
horde.
he's a Christian. I don't believe that.
No, but a lot do, and they think we can.
You're right, a lot do. There's one pro-family leader down in Mississippi that said he was the lion of Christianity. I was like,
Christianity. As he has people thrown out of buildings, as his Muslim troops are raping and torturing and killing Christians in Ukraine, he's the lion of Christianity. When he's shutting down churches all over the Donbass, he's the lion of Christianity. But it is.
and yet Zelensky himself has shut down some churches and blah, blah, blah.
He has. That's completely false.
You say that's false?
That's a complete lie. Tucker Carlson repeats this endlessly. The only church that's been shut down was a group of Orthodox priests who were directly working for Russia, got thrown out of a government building.
Which I
But this
interviewed
is
a former KGB officer several years ago who's here in America, was warning that the Orthodox Church had been used by the KGB. And he's a former KGB guy. Now, he quit talking to me after Putin came to more power because a lot of his KGB friends started disappearing, and he now won't talk to me on the air anymore.
Yeah, Konstantin Preobrazhensky. Yeah.
You know
I
exactly
had the
what I'm
same
talking about.
experience. I interviewed him, and he told me all these things. Then I come back a bit later, and he shut up completely.
100%.
Wouldn't say a darn thing.
You and I had the same experience independently of each other with the same testimony. He lives in Maryland, and he's like, I don't have no more to add, no more to add, no more to add. I'm like, how could you not have more to add? This is when you have plenty to add.
Yeah, somebody said a word with him for sure. But just getting back to it, you know, we're the big problem with the conservative movement now is we've been so divided. You've got a whole bunch of people who would have been very pro-Israel a few years ago, have been fed so much propaganda by the Iranians and etc. The Khazarian mafia, the Rothschilds, the AIPAC controls America. AIPAC has got nowhere near the control over congressmen that Cuba does or China does. You know,
Well, I want to stop you right there. Cuba helps control members of Congress. China controls members of Congress. We know Islamic money controls members of Congress. CARE,
Absolutely.
Council American Islamic Relations, etc. Right?
Yep.
I mean, I am pretty sure we could rattle off a lot of other groups that help control Congress from the NAACP and on down the line. But they always want to talk about the Jewish group. Like, if these guys are really running the world, they're doing a bad job, because I don't know why they can't get Trump to do what they want if they control Trump, because Trump doesn't always seem to be, you know, going along their way. There are times where Trump's telling them, you can't do that, you got to stop. I'm like, well, doesn't that just beat the narrative that the Jews run everything? Because President Trump's doing his own thing and telling them what to do.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's completely fallacious, but you've got, you know, 10 years ago, there was hardly any anti-Semitism on the US right. It had been pretty much extinguished. But the Russians been pumping this stuff out through QAnon and through all these other sources. Then you got the Jeffrey Sachses of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, pumping this stuff out 24/7. You know, this lie about about Ukraine shutting down churches. You know, the Russians have shut down every church in the Donbass. They're murdering priests right now. But Russia's a Christian nation, right? No, Russia is as the Orthodox Church, which is a branch of the KGB.
And by the way, again, I want to reiterate that that's what that KGB officer told me, and that was in my documentary Siege in 2019.
Yeah, so there's, look, I joke, and it's only half a joke. There's 3 elements in the Earth's atmosphere. There's oxygen, nitrogen, and Russian propaganda. You know, you have got sane, ordinary people, conservatives in this country, now thinking that Israel is a big problem in the world, that Ukraine is somehow the aggressor against Russia, that Russia is a Christian country. You got American people going to live in Russia, putting their families at risk because they think Russia is more God-fearing than America is.
You're right. I've seen them moving there. They're moving there.
And getting drafted into the Russian army to boot. You know, Russia has something like 6% of its population go to church. That's the Russian Orthodox Church. If you're a Baptist, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, anything else, you cannot bring your kids to church till they're 18, and you cannot proselytize outside the walls of your church. That's the free Christian Russia.
Wow.
That we're all supposed to worship.
And yet you're right. The anti-Semitism. Well, you add in the pumping of the propaganda with China, and then you're talking about just nonstop propaganda, right? It's everywhere.
You look, the Chinese and the Muslims, look at the Israel issue. The Chinese are pumping up Hamas and all the left-wing stuff that we see in the campuses, right? We got all these left-wing Students for Justice in Palestine Youth Movement. That's all China and the left. But then the Russians are pumping the Jew hatred on the right to hammer Israel from both sides. So you got Jew hatred going up on the right and the Jew hatred pumping up on the left. And the goal is to destroy Israel. Israel is a little Satan to them.
Not to mention
Israel, we're in big trouble.
Not to mention, yeah, you're right. Not to mention the faction how it's tearing up the MAGA movement.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. The MAGA movement is all that can save us now, as a country. but you've got this so much Russian propaganda pumped in against Israel and Ukraine, and then you've got the left-wing infiltration of MAGA, the so-called MAGA communists who are getting in there, and then Tulsi Gabbard's a great example of that. You got all these people converging and trying to tear the MAGA movement apart while pretending to be good MAGA people. I think Trump must be just about going crazy because he's got all these people around him trying to just twist things.
He's herding cats, isn't he?
It's herding cats, but I think this problem is because he doesn't really think in terms of ideology, everything's a deal to President Trump. And
That's
that
a
works.
very good point.
Yeah, that works great in some things, but it doesn't work great when you're dealing with ideologues like the mullahs or Putin or communist China.
In other words, what he needs is
deals.
he needs to invite you and me down to Mar-a-Lago and let's spend the weekend with him and brief him on the 6 dominant worldviews that rule the world.
Absolutely. You know, he's a man who's used to dealing in business. I mean, he's dealt with some pretty tough characters and he knows he can hammer out a deal. But when you got someone like Putin who wants to be the new Stalin or the new Peter the Great, Putin doesn't care about another hotel or making his people richer. Putin wants to go down in history as the man who restored the Soviet Empire. If you're dealing with the mullahs, they believe they can bring back the 12th Imam by plunging the world into war.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what do they care about a deal to make their people happier? They don't care about their own people. And the Chinese, the communist Chinese, yeah, they want to make money, but mostly they want to rule the planet with the combination of Marxism, Leninism, and Han Chinese nationalism. You know, they're sort of communist Nazis. So deal making doesn't work with those people. Only superior force works with those people. It doesn't mean you got to go to war with them. It means you got to make them fear you and make them back off. Same as Hitler. You know, imagine going to Hitler and say, look, stop persecuting the Jews, stop killing people. We'll build a great big hotel in Berlin. We'll build some plants and make your people richer. He would have laughed at you because that wasn't his goal.
And yet, while the anti-Semitism rises on the right, which is so hard to take. I mean, I can handle it on the left. I mean, I can't handle it, but I can expect it on the left. But to see it on the right and with people that you once had maybe some respect for, a little bit or something, but to see it being...
Some of them not much respect for. I'm surprised, you know. I get talking to someone and they'll say, who I really thought was great, smart, and they'll start saying, have you heard about the Khazarian mafia? And I'm thinking, this is invented by the Tsarist secret police to justify the pogroms. Then it was picked up and amplified by the Nazis. Now the Russians have been putting it out in the Middle East and all around the world to basically divide the conservative movement against Israel. And you got sane, rational people believing this stuff.
You do. And this is how it
just
manifests on the streets in America, in Europe, Canada. This one I played on radio/TV today. It absolutely breaks my heart. Look at this man. He's being beaten. Jewish man with his 2 daughters.
Where was that, Brannon?
That was in Canada. And the man was just walking with his 2 daughters.
Well, that's you know, Hitler so demonized the Jews that Germans were willing to watch them go to the slaughter. And we've been setting up for that again. You know,
and I don't know if that guy was an Islamist. He kind of has the look of a Middle Eastern dude. But I told the radio audience today, if I were made king of a country, if I was the king of a country and that went on in my country, I'd have that man dragged to me. He'd be dragged in front of me. I'd show him the video, ask his response, and then I would have him executed. And I would be a busy king because I'd be the king and I'd be the judge and the jury, and I would order my guys to execute. And I'd do it on national TV. And I would probably spend the first 100 days of my kingdom just executing one criminal thug after another. And then I would say, there you go. Have I put the fear of the sword in you per Romans 13? The fear of the sword? That's my job. make a stable and just society, reward the righteous, punish the wicked. You do this stuff, and I see it, you're going to be brought to my court, found guilty, unless you can prove it wasn't you, and then you're going to be executed. But if we have a reasonable, we have solid belief it's you, as in this video, you're done. And we're going to execute you on national TV and make an example of you and be done with crime. People say, well, he didn't murder. Well, that was attempted murder. When you're pounding a guy's face over and over on the ground on top of him, in my book, my opinion, that's attempted murder. You should be executed. If this country would get down to execution or restitution, we got too many nonviolent people in prison because it's a business now to warehouse people. We should be executing and then making them go out and work and make restitution. Oh, no, because we now have a prison industrial complex to add to all the other complexes. But this is how can any of these people that spout this hatred toward the Jews, how can any of them live with themselves watching this man who was just walking down the street with his daughter, 2 daughters, beat him up? And look at that little girl trying to protect her dad. And there's another little girl off to the side. She'll come around here in a minute. You'll see her, the bottom of her dress, to know it's a little girl. But
you imagine how traumatized those little girls will be for the rest of their life. You know, it's beyond corruption. Now, I just want to say while we're at it, I do not support private prisons.
No, me neither. Absolutely not. No.
That's a job for the state.
Yes.
You do not get private profit motive put into the prisons.
100%.
Absolute recipe for corruption that should be stopped.
And that's why we have judges being paid to throw innocent juveniles in camps and things we saw a few years ago, throwing people that were innocent or very minor things, and they're throwing the book at them and throwing them in camps when apparently the judge was being paid to do that under the table.
Well, yeah, look, in the Soviet Union in the 80s, I interviewed a couple of Soviet dissidents, and what the Soviets would do, they had labor camps. And if they had a big project going on, like a dam or something, they would have a crackdown on crime in the area. And they would just arrest all the young drunks and the young thugs and put them in jail for a couple of years until they got the dam built or until they got the bridge built or something. So, yeah, justice is, you cannot corrupt the justice system. But, you know, Trump has taken a tough line. He's just federalized the police in Washington, D.C. Good on him. He stood up to the rioters in LA. Good on him. He's taken these things seriously. As I say, I support his domestic policies about 98%. The foreign policy, I have a few problems with, unfortunately.
Well, the crime is just nonstop. Sick of it. Police say 3 dead. 3 dead in a shooting at a Target in Austin, Texas, and a suspect has been detained. It's just nonstop.
You almost expect to see a mass shooting or assassination attempt on a daily basis, don't you?
Yes, you do.
You're sort of surprised when you get through a day and there hasn't been one. Yep. And we're almost taking them in our stride now, where it used to, it should be a shocking thing, but now because you've got so many different factors ramped up, mainly. And this is the result of all these left-wing judges been letting criminals out for years, a slack justice system, plus the illegal immigrants, plus these judges, these DAs who won't prosecute crime. This is a recipe for it. But this is all a Marxist thing. Marxists always attack the police. They always attack the judiciary system. They always try and get liberal DAs elected and liberal justices, etc., because that is how you divide and bring down a society, by destroying the justice system. And that creates a civil war situation, and the communists can come and exploit that. It's very, very methodical. It's no accident that George Soros is always funding these left-wing DAs around the country.
Well said. TrevorLoudon.com. TrevorLoudon.com. It's spelled like his name there, TrevorLoudon. TrevorLoudon.com. As always, Trevor, thank you for being with us.
Always a pleasure, Brannon, and big shout out to all the viewers out there.
Absolutely. Trevor Loudon checking in, and we'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.